So why keep fighting so hard for the Second Amendment? Someone asked me. Well, why not stand on the foundation of the Constitution rather than freely give it away to the silver tongues of the sweet talkers who offer you empty promises they have never kept? I thought in response. Welcome to Courage and the Constitution. I'm just a guy digging behind the headlines to get to the nuggets of truth. I'm tired of the rhetoric and the propaganda. I'm being lied to by the media. I just want to know what's going on in the world. So let's do this. So, why keep fighting so hard for the rights afforded by the Second Amendment? The First Amendment and the Second Amendment go together. The Second Amendment, though, is like the armed guard that stands behind the First to keep it safe. If the Second Amendment falls, then the First Amendment is free and open to assassination. So, although I have the strength and the fortitude to continue to stand for our rights, including the first fundamental human right granted to us as Americans by our governing document, it is nonetheless exhausting to have to continue to explain the same thing over and over to people, especially people who much prefer the ease and acceptance of the popular crowd that celebrates their ignorance, their deliberate ignorance, both the people and the crowd. So, as Americans, we used to be fighters. We used to be strong. We as a people used to be willing to risk everything to stand up for what was right. But nowadays, it seems like it's fashionable and acceptable to simply close one's mind and roll over and expose the soft underbellies and have them, let the powers to be scratch them until they fall asleep in this sweet sensation of ignorant bliss. But make no mistake, the battle those of us who are too awake to be woke that we face is everything but blissful. We live in a little thing called real life. And in real life, there are good guys and there are bad guys. And the bad guys are the ones who come in pretending to be the good guys, but are doing everything that they can as wolves in sheep's clothing to leave the sheep weak and vulnerable. Why? But there are those of us who fight for everybody's rights, even if they hate us for it. So, in the continuation of the Biden-Harris plan to strip the people's rights, they continue, quoted right from their site, specifically the plan for smart guns and ghost guns. Now, there are a couple others that I'll skip, both for the sake of time and because, well, honestly, they're just dumb. I mean, they really are. They're just stupid. So, for example, where Biden says, require firearms owners to report if their weapon is lost or stolen. Responsible gun owners have a responsibility to inform law enforcement if their weapon is lost or stolen. Biden will enact legislation to make this the law of the land. Because it literally is already the law of the land. In fact, a stolen weapon has a very short legal window in which it is required to be reported. So yeah, this is just fluff to make Biden look good, to make him look like he's doing something. And it appears good to the overwhelming ignorance of his constituents. And I could go on. I could go into where he decrees require gun owners to safely store their weapons. Biden will pass legislation requiring firearm owners to store their weapons safely in their homes. Now here, common sense is lost because when one thinks storing a weapon safely in a home, they assume it to mean. And this is why it is so dangerous to assume anything about what Biden and Harris are saying without really digging below the shiny veneer of the surface. But these people assume it to mean that a gun is logically stored in a safe. Well, sort of. With California as the shining example and what Biden intends every state, and good luck with a state like, I don't know, Arkansas, but he intends for every state to enact by federal edict. California, you have to remember, is also Kamala Harris's old stomping ground. It means at all times a gun must be stored in a locked safe, a magazine removed in a different secured area and unloaded, and the ammo stored in yet another, even if somebody has no kids and lives alone. Common sense gun laws, right? Yeah. So imagine a violent home invasion. Most of the time, the intruder is on somebody before they even realize it or even have time to wake up, shake the cobwebs from their head, and well, what do they need to do? They need to run to their safe, unlock it, pull out their firearm, run to the other safe, unlock it, pull out their empty magazine, run to the other location, unlock that, pull out the ammo, load the ammunition into the magazine, then, like in Wayne's World when they were playing street hockey, yell out at the intruder, "All right, game on!" Okay! Game on!
Game on!
Game on!
Shoot, he scores!
Oh, 1 for 1!
That is going wild! Go!
Game on!
Game on!
Let's go.
Now, back to the Biden-Harris plan for smart guns and ghost guns. First of all, smart guns. Put Americans on the path to ensuring that 100% of firearms sold in America are smart guns. Today, we have the technology to allow only authorized users to fire a gun. For example, existing smart gun technology requires a fingerprint match before use. Biden believes we should work to eventually require that 100% of firearms sold in the U.S. are smart guns. But right now, the NRA and the gun manufacturers are bullying firearms dealers who try to sell these guns. Biden will stand up against these bullying tactics and issue a call to action for gun manufacturers, dealers, and the public and private entities to take steps to accelerate our transition to smart guns. The first takeaway for that piece of fantasy fiction writing of Biden's is that he dreams of an America where every gun, yes, he literally said 100% of firearms sold in the U.S. are smart guns. Well, he says, after all, we have the technology. Now first, what is a smart gun? Well, Biden has two different ways in which he expects, and I mean, he really is cute, isn't he? All up in his little ideal world of pretend plays with cute little characters and that little trolley that runs along all by itself, taking him all through the land of make-believe. So a smart gun has two qualifications to be considered a smart gun according to Biden. First, biometric readers, mainly fingerprint scanners in which a person would touch the gun perfectly in just the right place. Get your little mind out of the gutter there, will ya? But touch the gun in just the right place to where the gun would then power on and be ready for use. Yes, the gun would literally need to be powered on. Now let me ask you, what would have the potential to have more opportunities for failure? An item that has been computerized or an item that works mechanically? Now let me also ask you, what happens with the cost of the item? What about the upkeep? What about the repair in something someone used to be able to do themselves, but would now have to take in and leave with a repair person for however long that would end up taking? Give that a little thought there for a minute, would you, champ? Second, Biden expects every smart gun to have microstamping, which would imprint a special code on every primer stuck on a bullet and, let's say, a shooting crime occurred, right? So because the criminal would be using the fantasy smart gun instead of the good old-fashioned normal real-world gun, it would leave a serial mark on the casing that forensics could then pick up and trace back to the gun and the gun owner, also known as the murderer, who of course would pre-plan a criminal attack with such a weapon. Now this is where fantasy just does not line up with reality, yet Biden wants it to. And the low-informed follow the Pied Biden all the way to the cliff's edge. And I hope they can swim. Now, do you know how and where the imprint would be will be formed. Let me show you. On the inside of the pistol, should we open that up? In the trigger assembly, there is a pin. When you pull the trigger, the pin hits the butt end of the bullet, which is called this little dot right here, which is called a primer. That primer is what creates the ignition, that lights the powder, that creates the pressure, that sends the bullet forward. So it is this contacting this that would create the serial. Now, do you think it would be possible that if somebody was using the smart gun, and there's that little imprintation right there, that they maybe just file the serial mark off first? Now, okay, back to the biometric scanner. What do you think is one of the most fundamental reasons a firearm, especially a pistol, is used? For self-protection, right? Now, most deadly assaults occur within 3 to 10 feet. So, when you are suddenly attacked or you're blindsided and you have to suddenly draw down in an instant, or you're fighting with a criminal, are you going to have the wherewithal, with the adrenaline going and everything's going on, to know to put your finger exactly on the biometric reader where it needs to be in order to have your gun powered on? And then are you going to be able to be afforded to have the time it takes to have your gun powered on while you're in the middle of a deadly assault? How trustworthy do you think a tool like that would be if you had to trust your life to it? And let me ask you another question. Do you happen to have a fingerprint scanner on your laptop or on your smartphone? And if so, do you use it? Now, I know some do. I don't. And do you know why? It's because of the multiple times of trying. It frustrated the hell out of me when it just would not work. And that is computers and laptops. What about something like your gun? Something like a tool that you need to know that you can trust your mind to. That's what Biden wants to do with guns. And that's not just pistols. That's every gun. Those that haven't yet been banned. It almost feels like at this point that Biden should just be writing, what was that thing's name? In the never-ending story, Falcor, over his fantasy land of fakery and make-believe. Well, now, wouldn't you just know it? We are completely out of time. So much for getting to the ghost guns today, but feel free to look it up on their site. Now, I say that because I actually touched on ghost guns in 2 different videos, including the one titled, I Told You So. At least, I think that's the one in which I explained that some manufacturers were rated by the ATF. Now, there are now reports, of course, that the ATF has actually been going around and knocking doors. So, no, it's all common sense, and they're not coming for your guns. But that would never happen, right? They're literally doing it. They would never come and confiscate your firearms. That's what we're told. But you know what? Yeah. Bullshit. I'm sorry. But at some point, the people who claim this, they need to just pull their head out of it. And I will say that if you hear someone talking about ghost guns, it is a completely made-up term that they use to make something not scary seem scary in order to manipulate the majority of the culture. They are legal. They are not scary. And they have never, ever, 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 ever been involved in any crime. And nor do they have much chance of ever being so. But it's a nice low-hanging fruit for the gun control fanatics to pick, squash, then relieve themselves on. Finally, as a brief laugh deserved toward Biden and Harris in their just goofy world of make-believe, fantasy, scary things, their section on prosecuting straw purchases. Prioritize prosecution of straw purchasers. Straw purchasers, they buy a firearm on behalf of an individual who cannot pass a background check. Biden will end those loopholes by enacting a law to make all straw purchasers a serious federal crime and ensure that the U.S. Justice Department has sufficient resources to sufficient resources to prioritize their prosecution. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, like the reporting of stolen guns, the illegality of a straw purchase and the prosecution of it, it is literally already a thing, just as Biden has written it. Most ranges and gun stores even have posters up that warn that if that activity is caught, that those people are going to be reported. But hey, why not throw it in, since all these Facebook comment warriors who say, they ain't trying to take your... They have zero idea of what they're even talking about. But they don't need to, because they sound so smart to themselves and the other crowds of irrational dummies who join them in an oblivious, rousing circle, a circle of jerks. And they pat each other on the back, promising future generations of even less informed individuals than they. God help us all. Anyway, the addition of the straw purchase fluff into Biden's plan, it kind of reminds me of how I use a lot of fluff in reports in school to meet the word count minimum. We first scratch our heads, think about it in a moment, and then we just this is just where we just throw our heads back and laugh.
Now comes the part where we throw our heads back and laugh. Ready? Ready!
So what are your thoughts? What are your comments? Do the thing in the place there down below. And if you do find this content of value and you believe that others would benefit from it, then please like, share, and subscribe. That'll help me grow this channel, and in turn, that will do a lot to help us all out. Thank you.